Someone recently asked also about the reframer on OptimalWork.com. That's a great place to start to dig in more detail in each of these steps. So with the first one, helping people to identify the essence of the challenge, my sense is that initially people will think that the challenge is something external, a difficult task or a person that they find annoying or whatever it is. But what we're trying to help people do is to flip the challenge to see it as something internal, some element of themselves. Like, oh, the reason why I can't deal with this person and I find them annoying is because actually I am impatient or I am prone to thinking uncharitably about other people. So that's actually the challenge. Am I right are we trying to get people to flip from external to internal?
I think that always is part of it, because every ideal is a form of self-mastery. So you have to ask yourself, what in myself do I have to attain mastery over? And the ideals are what allow us to do that. But at the same time, there's I think that we still want to be able to do it for motives that transcend ourselves. So eventually we want to see even the growth that we attain in ideals as being in the service of others, that in fact it's about love and service. So I think yes, it's not just about self-perfection. Yeah.
So if someone at this point, they have, my challenge is, this presentation, this task is really hard and I just don't want to do it because it seems annoying or boring. Is that a good challenge for them to be facing? Or can they stop? Can they move on to the next step? The challenge is this task that I don't want to do. That's good enough to move on?
You could ask yourself then, as you're thinking of the ways you could grow, it could be your ability to break things down into smaller steps. It could be your ability to learn from the example and advice of others. So is it really about you learning how to have a greater patience in the face of frustration? Is there perseverance here? And if you're more persevering and doing what you need to do, will that help you to love and serve others? So the nice thing about every kind of skills will always connect to ideals, and ideals will always connect to bonds in the end. That in some way, our own growth in self-mastery, our growth in every ideal, the highest ideals are all synonyms of being loving, being caring and kind and generous. And, all of these are like ways essentially of living love as the ideal of all ideals. So love unites ideals. I think that there's also a sense here that when we challenge ourselves from motives of love, it's the precise opposite of challenging ourselves from motives of fear. And typically, any motive to just get something done or to get something over with is still dominated by fear. So we're going to tend to do things more automatically and rotely and efficiently to get through it as quickly as we can. And that is what we're always, I think, needing to learn to identify when that happens, to see that, no, that's all based on fear. But what if instead of fearing this challenge, it was somehow in the service of love? So in the service of the deepest kind of growth I can attain, then what's the best way I could be loving while doing this? What's the best motive of service that I can have? Sometimes just, with students, it can be a little harder because their work is a little bit more removed from the direct service of others. But they could also think, if I really mastered this material, could I better help my friends to master it? Could I be a better source of advice for those that I'm working with? How would I master this stuff so well that I could actually teach a class on it? So start thinking about how you would be teaching these things. But there's always a way that you can bring in some way, the higher motives.
I think that's getting to the step 3 of seeing how you can grow the most, and then a little bit of step 4 of how can that make you better able to love and serve others. So that's great. That's super helpful in understanding those steps. I also want to get into the step in between, and I think this is basically our last question here, but because it ties in this idea of active challenge and work. And so I think for you, you see that every challenge is kind of there to be worked on. That, it's not this, the reframer is not necessarily, people aren't necessarily going to do it for a work-related challenge. It could be a personal challenge. But in any case, you want to help people have the sense of working the challenge, breaking it down into steps, thinking of a new way of approaching it.
Turn it into a golden hour. Every challenge can become a golden hour. And to do that, you need the growth goal that you're aiming for. That is the foundation of your strategy. The rest of the strategy is just coming up with some concrete steps that will get you traction in it. So when we say a challenge is there to be worked, we mean it's there to be strategized. It's there so that you can actively think of, put your intelligence into aiming higher while you do it, and then make concrete steps to carry it out. That is the best way that you can set up any challenge. And really any task, if you start to think about it in terms of like set a high goal that your heart can resonate with, that you can feel a bit enthused about attaining, and then lay out concrete steps, that work is just now ready, that when you have a free moment, when you have the available time, now you can do a real golden hour on that.